I asked Chomsky if the United States was targeting Nicaragua because U.S. officials didn't like the threat of a good example. The example being countries taking an independent course which isn't subordinate to the interest of U.S. business elites. The threat that countries may improve the lives of their people with independence from U.S. power.
Or was it like a threat of a good example?
Yes. The same as Cuba. I mean, in the case of Cuba, we know, Nicaragua is recent, we don't have internal documents. Cuba, we have a rich store of internal documents. It's a very free country. We know a lot about the government. The Kennedy and early Johnson administrations were concerned about what they called Cuba's successful defiance of U.S. foreign policy, which goes back to the Monroe Doctrine, 1820s. No Russians. Monroe Doctrine asserts the U.S. right to control the hemisphere, that Cuba was carrying out successful defiance of that. Ask your favorite Mafia Don what that means. Furthermore, Arthur Schlesinger, who headed Kennedy's Latin American mission and was his advisor, well-known historian, he, in his the internal documents that he wrote to Kennedy, he says the problem is what he's called the spread of the Castro idea of taking matters into your own hands, which will appeal to impoverished people throughout the hemisphere who were suffering conditions very much like that of the Batista dictatorship that Castro overthrew. So we got to stop it. Not resources. They don't have resources, tropical fruit. Successful defiance and the threat of spreading the idea of taking matters into your own hands and running your own affairs. That's got to be stopped. It's the same with Vietnam. The U.S. didn't go after Vietnam because of its resources. I mean, Eisenhower made some speeches about it, but it was nonsense.
I'm not sure if you said in so many words, but would you think that they should have had elections in 1956?
Who should have had elections?
In Vietnam, wasn't there an agreement in 1954?
Yes, there was. In fact, the U.S. didn't agree to it, but there was an agreement at Geneva, a treaty of the parties, in which they agreed to a temporary temporary separation, North and South, with unifying elections to take place in 1956. Well, the U.S. knew they were going to come out the wrong way, so they undermined it, prevented them.
So is this an oversimplification? But in Vietnam, would you say we were fighting against democracy?
Of course. I mean, I don't know what kind of democracy there would have been, but we were certainly trying to undermine democracy. But the main thing was to prevent independence. Didn't care whether it was democratic or totalitarian. Democratic would have been just as bad as totalitarian. Prevent independence. And there was a reason. There was concern. We have, again, the internal records. There was concern that an independent Vietnam might become a model of successful development, which would spread throughout the region. Successful independent development, independent of the U.S., spread to other places, and maybe reach Indonesia, which was really valuable. And that might even force Japan to accommodate to independent Asian mainland becoming its technological center. I mean, that's what the U.S. fought World War II in the Pacific to prevent.